Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's Dina Calmetta here, and for today's news, I do have some headlines I'd like to share with you. In this being a Bible prophecy update, I'd like to talk about the prophecy in the books of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Wars and rumors of wars, as well as earthquakes. And we're going to talk about some other prophecies as well. But the scripture reads, Matthew 24:6-8, And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So first, let's talk about what's happening with Israel, the United States, and Iran. Responding to I-24 News' question regarding reported progress in diplomatic ties with Syria and the pace of change, Netanyahu said that there is an opportunity to explore. He says, I think that everyone understands that the situation has changed. Before that, Iran was essentially running Syria. Iran is out of the picture. So I think that this prevents opportunities for stability, security, and eventually for peace. And I think that's been opened up also by the fact that the president has opened up a channel. Finally, reports that Netanyahu added that he believes Israel can secure a regional peace, which would work to the benefit of the Palestinians, who should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. No one in Israel will agree to anything else. And he went on to say a little bit more that I can't exactly say here on YouTube. But it certainly seems like they are still chasing after peace. So I guess time will tell. It's been very quiet as of the last week or so as it pertains to the Abraham Accords, but I have no doubt that we're going to be hearing more, most likely in the near future. As we know, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3 says, For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So without the Prince of Peace, Jesus, there will be no peace. But in the meantime, they are going to eventually have a peace covenant with Israel, as noted in Daniel 9:27, that the Antichrist will confirm. But isn't it very interesting that they've been quiet lately? I thought for sure we would hear more about this, but time will tell, and as always, I'll keep you updated. Now, speaking of Iran, 10 Free Beacons reporting that Russia is ready to assist Iran in refilling uranium stockpiles. This is according to the Russian foreign minister. Leaders of both the United States and Israel have stated that they are open to further strikes on Iran's nuclear infrastructure should they attempt to rebuild its program. Well, Russia's foreign ministry on Tuesday said that the country is prepared to help Iran replenish its uranium stockpiles, offering Iran a path to a rebuilt nuclear program in the wake of the U.S. and Israeli campaign. He stated in a BRICS meeting that Moscow is ready to assist Tehran in refueling its depleted uranium stocks. Russia has technological solutions for uranium depletion and is ready to work with Iran in this field. He also went on to say, we have technological capacities and we are ready to offer them, taking the excess of overly enriched uranium and returning the power generation grade uranium to the Islamic Republic and its nuclear facilities. So as we know, the U.S. and Israeli air campaign destroyed Iran's top nuclear site, including the mountain bunker at Fordow that stored much of the country's uranium. Russia's offer to replace the uranium could lay the groundwork for Iran to restart its weapons work. Now, Andrea Strickler, a non-proliferation expert with the Foundation of Defense of Democracies, told the Washington Free Beacon that Russia's veiled threat to provide Iran with enriched uranium fuel, most of which was eliminated militarily by the United States and Israel, would help Iran restore nuclear weapons breakout capability. She also went on to say that Washington should take this seriously and talk to Moscow about the very serious consequences they would face if such an action is to be followed through, and to be prepared to strike Iran again to prevent reconstitution of the regime's atomic weapons program. Leaders of both the U.S. and Israel have stated that they are open to further strikes on Iran's nuclear infrastructure should Iran rebuild its program. So definitely wars and rumors of wars, you guys. And what I told you last week, the fire is definitely not out as it concerns Iran and Israel and the United States. Express News is reporting that Europe's largest port has revealed how it is preparing for potential conflict involving Russia as Putin's ambitions mount. The Dutch port of Rotterdam is reserving space for ships carrying military equipment and also planning where to divert cargo in the event of a conflict. It is said that the plans make up part of a series of war preparations drawn up across Europe as nations on the continent look to pour considerably more into their defense budget as the Russia threat continues to loom. The chief executive of the port said it has been working with the neighboring Belgium's Antwerp docks and how it could handle the possible arrival of vehicles and supplies from the UK, US, and Canada. He said not every terminal is fit for handling military cargo. So very interesting news here. Europe is definitely preparing for a future conflict with Russia, and we have seen similar reports to this in recent months. Now, Breitbart News is reporting that Germany has summoned the Chinese ambassador for a dressing down after it stated a Chinese warship, unprovoked and without warning, fired a laser weapon at an aircraft on a European Union military mission. The militaries of several developed nations are developing and deploying experimental laser weapons, a non-kinetic and potentially cost-effective anti-air capability for blinding military aircraft and shooting down drones and missiles. Now, Germany alleges that China has used such a device in anger against one of its aircraft over the Red Sea in the text of a diplomatic protest issued against Beijing. Per the German Foreign Ministry, the Chinese military employed a laser, endangering the aircraft and the crew aboard. Germany has made a formal diplomatic protest over the incident, summoning the Chinese ambassador to Berlin for a dressing down. The Foreign Ministry said that endangering German personnel and disrupting the operation is entirely unacceptable. Now, as it relates to China and the US, and this is a long time coming, but the Trump administration has announced that the U.S. will be banning China and foreign adversaries from buying up United States farmland. Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins said on Tuesday during a press conference that the U.S. government will take swift legislative and executive action to ban the purchase of American farmland by Chinese nationals and other foreign adversaries. She went on to say that standing on the shoulders of great governors, 3 of whom are standing behind me, who have already been leading the way on this issue in the federal government level, working to do everything within our ability, including presidential authorities, to claw back what has already been purchased by China and other foreign adversaries. The policy is part of a wider multi-agency approach to protect America's farmland foods, as well as other critical infrastructure from Chinese influence. She said American agriculture is not just about feeding our families, but about protecting our nation and standing up to foreign adversaries who are buying our farmland, stealing our research, and creating dangerous vulnerabilities in the very systems that sustain us. The effort, she said, will involve multiple agencies in the federal and state levels and will safeguard the U.S. agricultural industry from foreign influence and adversarial forces. As of right now, China has bought up a wide range of farmland in the U.S., with much of it close to U.S. military bases around the country, and has over 380,000 acres of farmland in the U.S. The farmland has been a point of concern with policymakers for multiple years, as the land can serve as a way for the CCP to conduct influence in those regions. According to the New York Post, at least 700 foreign nationals will be kicked off the government contracts and research agreements with the USDA, and 550 foreign entities will be removed as well. So this is good news, you guys, because I reported on this a couple of times. And as you can see, they have bought a lot of land from the U.S. And very interesting that it's near our military bases. Something that is very dangerous and kind of creepy at the same time. Now, with that said, let's talk about what's happening with earthquakes. This next report comes from Prophecy News Watch, originally written by Michael Schneider of the Economic Collapse. And he writes, is there a possibility that a cataclysmic eruption of Mount Rainier could occur in the not-too-distant future? Well, on Tuesday morning, Mount Rainier was shaken by over 400 earthquakes. It was the largest earthquake swarm that we have seen since 2009. He goes on to say that one of these days, Mount Rainier will suddenly erupt, and a lot of people living in the vicinity of the volcano will perish. Authorities have always known about the threat that Mount Rainier poses, but they just kept building more homes in the shadow of the volcano. The stage is set for a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, and the clock is ticking. Mount Rainier had been pretty quiet for a while, but that period of relative stability was shattered very early on Tuesday morning. The activity began on July 8, 2025 at 1:25 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. time, with hundreds of earthquakes recorded at depths ranging from 1.2 to 3.7 miles below the summit. The largest earthquake so far has been a magnitude 1.7. This is really big news. By the time the earthquake swarm was over, the U.S. Geological Survey had recorded over 400 earthquakes. According to the USGS, this was the biggest earthquake swarm that we have seen since 2009 at Mount Rainier. So why is it such a big deal? Well, the reason why it's such a big deal is because Mount Rainier is located close to major population centers that it is considered to be a very high threat volcano. It is located about 45 miles southeast of Tacoma, and it is an active stratovolcano and the tallest peak in the Cascade Range. It is considered, again, a very high-threat volcano due to its potential hazards, including volcanic mud flows, known as lahars, ashfall, and pyroclastic flows. Michael believes that this could be the most dangerous volcano in the United States. Throughout history, there have been times when it has produced tsunamis of superheated mud known as lahars that are hundreds of feet high. In fact, lots of homes in the region have literally been built right on top of the ancient lahar deposits. Needless to say, that was an extremely foolish thing to do. The next time there is a major eruption of Mount Rainier, entire communities will be instantly wiped out. Take, for instance, the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. Mount Rainier is about twice the size of Mount St. Helens, and millions of local residents live within easy viewing distance of the volcano. When it finally blows, vast numbers of people will suddenly find themselves in imminent danger. According to the USGS, there are approximately 150,000 people currently living on top of these old lahar deposits from Mount Rainier. Just think about that for a moment. Needless to say, that was not very smart planning at all. For a moment, I would like for you to imagine what it would be like to have a giant wall of superheated mud that is hundreds of feet high rushing at you at 50 miles per hour. For those located in the direct path, there will be little hope of escape. This mountain is going to erupt at some point. It's only a matter of time. Meanwhile, unusual earthquake activity is occurring on the other side of the globe as well. And as I reported on Monday, over the past 2 weeks, more than 1,300 earthquakes have shaken one area of Japan. Now, although there has been no major damage or any tsunamis reported, but Japan's meteorological agency has cautioned that the tremors are as strong as a lower 6. Lower 6 indicates an intensity that make it difficult for people to stand without holding on to a stable support. Local residents are literally afraid to go to sleep because the shaking never stops. Well, I would think so at 1,300 earthquakes. But he goes on to say, can you imagine? This is the reality of life in that part of Japan in 2025. Unfortunately, we are going to see a lot more shaking all over the world. Yes, that includes the United States. He goes on to say that I came across an article that warned that scientists are concerned that the New Madrid seismic zone is approaching a critical threshold. Since 1974, thousands of small moderate earthquakes have been detected by seismometers across the New Madrid seismic zone, painting a picture of relentless geological activity. The U.S. Geological Survey and Time magazine have documented this steady drumbeat of seismic events, showing that the fault system never truly sleeps. These aren't random occurrences. They represent the constant grinding and shifting of massive rock formations deep underground. Each small quake is like a pressure valve releasing just enough steam to prevent an immediate explosion. But the underlying forces keep building. Scientists have been tracking this activity for half a century now, and the data reveals disturbing patterns that suggest that the region is approaching a critical threshold. He goes on to finally say that a time is coming when the middle of the country will be absolutely devastated by an apocalyptic earthquake along the New Madrid seismic zone. Our planet is becoming more unstable. Our weather is becoming more unstable. And very strange things have been happening in the heavens. It is time for everyone to wake up. So many of these things that we have warned about are starting to happen. And the pace of events is only going to accelerate from here. A very, very powerful report here from Michael Schneider. Meanwhile, over in Guatemala, a shallow earthquake registered by the USGS at a 5.7 hit southern Guatemala on July 8th. The agency is reporting a depth of 6.2 miles. Preliminary reports indicate at least 6 fatalities and more than 7 injuries, with dozens of homes sustaining severe structural damage. So certainly some shaking happening, you guys. So we know what scripture says about earthquakes. But what does it say about volcanoes? Acts chapter 2 verses 19 through 21 says, "And I will show wonders in the heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood, before the great and notable day of the Lord come." So right here in verse 19, we see blood and fire and vapor of smoke. So obviously it could mean fire, as it says, but vapor of smoke, where do we get that from? Not only with wildfires, but we also get vapors of smoke with volcanoes. So very interesting. We also see a similar verse in Joel chapter 2, verses 30 through 31. We have seen blood moons, but we will see more blood moons during the tribulation period. We also see in Revelation chapter 6 verses 12 through 14, "And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it was rolled together, and every mountain and every island were moved out of their places." And again, we see earthquakes in Revelation chapter 16, verses 18 through 20. "And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found." Again, very possible. Because of the earthquake, volcanoes, mountains are going to disappear. This particular verse here is in the very latter times, right before the second coming of Jesus, because great Babylon comes into God's remembrance and will fall. Now, we don't know who great Babylon is. There are some good guesses out there, but as of right now, we don't know, and we're not going to know, because that's going to be the Antichrist seat, per se, when he rules over the earth for 7 years, and the rapture happens before that. But, like I said, there are a lot of good guesses. Now, in the meantime, what else is going on? Over in New Mexico, flash floods hit New Mexico, leaving at least 3 perishing. The area that the floods went through were a wildfire-scarred village in southern New Mexico after torrential rain triggered raging flash flooding. The victims were swept away by what authorities described as record-breaking floodwater in the village of Ruidoso in the Sierra Bianca mountain range, a popular summer retreat area. A very sad situation with these floods, you guys. In the meantime, as for Texas, there are over 170 still missing after these floods. I am still literally speechless over this. It is completely heartbreaking, and my thoughts and my prayers go out to all of those that have been affected by this. There are no words, absolutely no words. Another very horrific event has occurred in China and the Nepal border. At least 1 fatality and nearly 30 people were reported missing as floods and landslides along the China-Nepal border destroyed the Midori Bridge on July 8th, halting trade along the key route connecting the 2 countries. Another very, very sad events, you guys. We are definitely seeing a lot of flooding lately. Jesus told us that in the last days it would be as it were in the days of Noah. Matthew chapter 24 verses 37 through 39, "But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So we are watching the days of Noah, not just with these floods, you guys. As I stated last week, we're seeing an increase of crime, an increase of sin. We're seeing scientists manipulate DNA. So there could be no denying that with all of that in the picture, we are absolutely witnessing the days of Noah and the days of Lot. Now, with that said, we're also seeing signs in the heavens and in the sun, moon, and stars. After 18 days with no notable flaring, our star, meaning the sun, unleashed a M2.4 solar flare from an emerging region on the northeast limb. Radio frequencies were forecast to be the most degraded over East Asia at the time of the flare. Now, the New York Post is reporting that astronaut photographs elusive luminous event from far above Earth. The astronaut aboard the International Space Station has shared a striking photo of what is known as transient luminous events seen above a thunderstorm over Mexico and the desert southeast earlier in the week. The NASA astronaut, Vapor, posted the image on social media and said, "Just wow. As we went over Mexico in the US this morning, I caught this sprite. Sprites are a type of TLE, which create brilliant flashes of light high above powerful thunderstorms and are difficult to observe from the ground." There is some debate on whether what she captured is surely a sprite or what is known as a gigantic jet. Both are part of the TLE phenomena. According to the NOAA, sprites are often triggered by positive cloud-to-ground lightning strikes, which produce an electric field that extends miles above a thunderstorm into the upper atmosphere. The phenomenon appears mostly red in color, lasts only a fraction of a second, and appears so high in the atmosphere that it is rarely visible to the human eye, unless, of course, you are orbiting some 250 miles above Earth's surface. So more signs in the heavens. So certainly we are watching Bible prophecy come to pass right before our very eyes. And with that said, I'd love to hear from all of you, so please do leave your comments below this video. When you have some time, come and visit us on our social media pages, as well as our website at www.cww7news.com. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. God bless, and until next time, stay safe.